we're creating this gorgeous 8-inch kitchen knife from the Ron Hock kitchen knife kit. In the first video in this series, we already shaped the scales, and now it's time to glue it together. I'm now ready to glue the scales onto the knife blank. The front of the scales have been shaped and smoothed and sanded up to a final 400 grit in this case. And now I want to test fit the scales onto the knife using the actual pins and make sure everything's going to line appropriately. The pins in this case are extremely tight in my 1/4 inch holes, which is perfect. It's like a great perfect fit, and I will be able to tap them in. But I am not going to test fit with these pins because tapping them in and out is going to be pretty tricky. Like I said, it's very tight. So I'm going to go ahead and use my pins, my little homemade shop pins with the dowels. That's a little bit smoother fit, and test all the way across both scales on here. Now that I've got the handle attached using my dowels, I can take a look all the way around and make sure it's in good shape. I'll be able to clean all this up after gluing together. The next thing I want to do is tape off right along this front edge for any squeeze out that comes out. It's going to definitely help having some tape there for pulling off that squeeze out. Now I've got a bit of a rounded edge, so that makes it a little tricky to tape, but I'll just do the best job I can. Now I also want to be careful when I'm putting this blue tape on. I've had trouble before. Blue tape can get, if you're trying to get it really close, you can actually get underneath, and then you got little bits of blue, and that does not look good. So I'm going to make sure to pull it back. If I leave a little bit of the knife exposed, like you can barely kind of see up in there, that's going to be fine. I definitely don't want to get any of my blue tape underneath and stuck after the glue up. So I backed the tape off just a fraction. You can see a little bit exposed there, and once I get the epoxy on, I should be able to clean that up without too much trouble. Now I'm going to take these scales back off of the knife, and I'm going to rough up the inside of these with some 120 paper and clean them off with a little bit of turpentine or acetone or something, just to get them nice and clean so that the glue is going to get a nice surface to stick to. And I'm also going to do the same with these pins, just give them a little bit of rough up with some sandpaper and make sure they're nice and clean so the glue, I won't have any trouble sticking to them. And I forgot to scuff this up, so we'll do that as well. Just give that metal a quick scuffing and then wipe that down nice and clean. And all those parts, as soon as they're dry in a couple minutes, they'll be ready to go. For the epoxy, I'm using the West System epoxy resin and using these handy pumps. So 1 pump of the resin, and I've got the special clear hardener, but of course you can use any of the different hardeners would be fine. Even the quick hardener would probably be fine. You just want to avoid like super glues and super quick acting epoxies, the 5-minute epoxies. They're not as strong. It's not going to give you very much open time to work with, so you're going to be in a bit of a rush, and they're not as strong. So look for these 2-part epoxies, the slower setting regular epoxies, and you'll be in good shape. Now I'll mix this epoxy for about a minute, about 60 seconds, just stirring that all together. And what I love about working with epoxy is how much time you have. So you're just not in a rush at all. You have plenty of time to put everything together, get your clamps in place and all that good stuff. So it's really, really nice. In this case, my scale is actually a little thicker than the pins, which is fine. Can of course sand all that down to match. So I'm just going to flush up the pins on this side. Now, it's definitely got pretty messy here, epoxy along the outside, which is fine, but with my clamps, I don't want my clamps sticking to that. So I'm going to grab some paper and put that in between. Just kind of wrap that around there, and then pop on all my clamps. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and crank down on all these handles and get these clamps nice and really tight. Now you don't need these little clamps like I have here. You could probably use one big parallel jaw clamp and really crank that down, or whatever you have on hand. You could put in cauls in between if you want to, if you got one clamp in the middle and just want to apply that pressure. So whatever you have, I think will really work in this case. I would definitely get quite a bit of pressure across, however, maybe not just a spring clamp. It's nice to get these nice and tight for that epoxy to get a really nice bond. The epoxy's been drying for about 2 hours, and now I want to lift off the blue tape and scrape out and clean off any excess glue squeeze out. Okay, it's been about 15 or 20 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and just take the clamps off and start cleaning up the handle. The scales and the rivets are all glued, and the glue has cured overnight. Of course, there's a lot of wax paper still sticking to it, and now a lot of cleaning and shaping of this handle, and then we can apply some finish.